What's up, YouTube people? Shaggy the Writer coming at you back again with some new content once more. I'm going to attempt to read chapters 4 through 6 of Oliver Twist, answer any questions you might have about the story, and, hopefully engage in some lively discussion as well. Last night I got a new subscriber who is super young and has a total potty mouth, but he had me just weak with laughter the whole time. So up there he is. That was fast, Fishy. Nice seeing you, bud. Um, like I was saying, though, we're just getting right into chapter 4. So without any further ado, Oliver being offered another place makes his first entry into public life. In great families, when an advantageous place cannot be obtained either by possession, reversion, remainder, or expectancy for the young man who is growing up, it is a very general custom to send him to sea. The board, in imitation of so wise and salutary an example, took counsel together on the expediency of shipping off Oliver Twist in some small trading vessel bound to a good unhealthy port, which suggested itself as the very best thing that could possibly be done with him, the probability being that the skipper would flog him to death in a playful mood some day after dinner, or would knock his brains out with an iron bar, both pastimes being, as is pretty generally known, very favorite and common recreations among gentlemen of that class. Yeesh. My story videos I had to air upload. Oh, sorry, Fishy. Definitely want to see that though. So I mean, if you can get on it like a little later today, I mean, I'll watch it for you for sure. Because anyone your age who's capable of writing a cohesive short story deserves all the praise imaginable. And the fact that you can even keep up with this is like super impressive. Thank you, definitely. But the more the case presented itself to the board in this point of view, the more manifold the advantages of the step appeared. So they came to the conclusion that the only way of providing for Oliver effectually was to send him to sea without delay. Or later today, maybe, IDK. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna definitely be on the lookout for that. I will be checking for that. Yo, what's up, Charlie Zone? How you doing today, man? Uh, we just reading Charles Dickens's Oliver Twist. So you might not be into this. If you are, stick around. I'm on chapter 4 right now. Let me do a quick recap, actually, because we got through the first 3 chapters yesterday. Initially, Oliver Twist was born into a workhouse, which back in the day was where they would just sell more food in his diet. They tried to pawn him off on a chimney sweep. And when they did that, him just looking sad in the office was enough to convince some old lord dude that was in charge of letting people apply for apprenticeships to not let him go to this apprenticeship with the chimney sweep. So we're here where they are talking about shipping him off to go be in the British Navy, which at the time they hoped was a death sentence. It's yeah. my social commentary and just some really yes, we know you were cursing yesterday, Fishy. It's all right. But it's got some really great social commentary that applies pretty well today as well. And just some of the turns of phrase in this are like just classic. But anyway, Mr. Bumble had been dispatched to make various preliminary inquiries with the view of finding out some captain or other who wanted a cabin boy without any friends, and was returning to the workhouse to communicate the result of his mission, when he encountered, just at the gate, no less a person than Mr. Sowerberry, that's not patriarchal, parochial undertaker. Now I got another word to look up. But Mr. Sowerberry was a tall, gaunt, large-jointed man attired in a suit of threadbare black, with darned cotton stockings of the same color, and shoes to answer. His features were not naturally intended to wear a smiling aspect, but he was in general rather given to professional joicity. His step was elastic, and his face beckoned in inward pleasantry as he advanced to Mr. Bumble and shook him cordially by the hand.
"I have taken the measure of the two women that died last night, Mr. Bumble,"
said the undertaker.
"You'll make your fortune, Mr. Sowerberry,"
said the beetle as he thrust his thumb and forefinger into the proffered snuff box of the undertaker, which was an ingenious little model of a patient coffin. Oh my. You can do whatever you want, Fishy. You can curse as much as you want. I don't think Charlie was really feeling the literature, and I just appreciate him stopping by and saying hi. So it's still dope regardless. Um, but whew. Anyway, yeah, he was just pulling a little pinch of chewing tobacco out of his coffin. And the weird thing about that era is that they would intentionally get it really dry and shove it up their nose as opposed to just keeping it in their mouth so that way they didn't have to spit it out at people. So that's why it was called snuff, because they'd always be sitting there making noises like they just did a line of something nasty because they're literally sticking tobacco up their nose going the whole damn thing over spitting. But
"I say you'll make your fortune, Mr. Sowerberry,"
repeated Mr. Bumble, tapping the undertaker on the shoulder in a friendly reminder with his cane. Think so, said the undertaker in a tone which half admittedly, half disputed the probability of the event.
"The prices allowed by the board are very small, Mr. Bumble." "So are the coffins,"
replied the beetle with precisely as near approach to a laugh as the great official ought to indulge in him. Mr. Sowerberry was much tickled at this, as of course he ought to be. The laugh a long time without cessation. Well, well, Mr. Bumble, he said at length,
"There's no denying that, since the new system of feeding has come in. The coffins are something narrower and more shallow than they used to be, but we must have some profit, Mr. Bumble. Well-seasoned timber is an expensive article, sir, and all of the iron handles come by canal from Birmingham."
uh,
"Well, well," said Mr. Bumble, "every trade has its drawbacks. A fair profit is of course allowable."
"Oh, of course," replied the undertaker. "And if I don't get a profit on this or that particular article, why, I make up for it in the long run, you see." They actually spelled it out. He.
"Just so,"
said Mr. Bumble.
"Thought I might say,"
continued the undertaker, resuming the current of observations which the beetle had interrupted.
"Thought I might say, Mr. Beetle,
that I have contended against one very great disadvantage, which is that all the stock people go the quickest. The people who have been better off and who have paid rates for many years are the first to sink when they come into the house. And let me tell you, Mr. Bumble, that 3 or 4 inches over one's calculation makes a great hole in one's profits, especially when one has a family to provide for, sir. Having a YouTube channel is hard. Yep. It's gotta just be more for fun than anything. I want to use mine to eventually promote my books that I'm going to be coming out with very soon. And I did say books multiple. So be on the lookout for that. uh, as Mr. Sowerberry said this with the honor of the parish, the latter gentleman thought it was advisable to change the topic. There, I said subject and topic at the same time, but the word in here is subject. Oliver, just being uppermost in his mind, made him his theme.
"By the by," said Mr. Bumble, "you don't know anybody who wants
round the proarchical throat.
Liberal terms, Mr. Sowerberry, liberal terms.
As Mr. Bumble spoke, he raised his cane to the bill above him and gave three distinct raps upon the words £5, which were printed thereon in Roman capitals of gigantic size. God shoo! Undertaker, taking Mr. Bumble by the gilt-edged lapel of his official coat.
This is the very thing I wanted to speak to you about. You know, dear me, what a very elegant button this is, Mr. Bumble. I've never noticed it before. Yes, I think it's rather pretty,
said the beetle, glancing proudly downwards at the large brass buttons which embellished his coat.
The die is the same as the parochial seal. The good Samaritan hearing a sick and bruised man. The board presented it to me on New Year's morning, Mr. Sowerberry. I put it on, I remember, for the first time, to attend the inquest on that reduced tradesman who died in a doorway at midnight.
Oddly specific.
Well, recollect, said the undertaker,
the jury brought him in, died from exposure to the cold and want from common necessities of life, did they? Mr. Bumble nodded. And they made it a very special verdict, I think, said the undertaker, by adding some words to the effect that if the relieving officer had
tush, foolery,
interposed the beetle. God, you could just say interrupted, but it's like interposed just sounds so much better. um,
if the ward attended to all the nonsense that ignorant journeymen took, they'd have enough to do.
Oh, very true, said the undertaker. They would indeed.
Juries,
said Mr. Bumble, grasping his cane tightly, as was his wont when working into a passion.
Juries is uneducated, vulgar, grovelling wretches.
Oh, so they are, said the undertaker.
They haven't no more philosophy nor political economy about 'em than that,
said the beetle, snapping his fingers contemptuously. No more they have, acquiesced the undertaker. Yeah, because there is, like, every day the haters be like, ooh, a YouTube channel, let's hate. F. Yep. Basically, someone hated my review of Catch 22. And you know what? That's all right. People are allowed to hate. You know, they can take out their frustrations here. This is a safe space. Yeah, don't hate Fishy too hard. He's learning. But where was I? Keep losing my place trying to. Let's see, juries. Yeah, bad English makes them hilarious. And then,
I despise 'em,
said the beetle, growing very red in the face. So do I, rejoined the undertaker.
And I only wish we'd be a jury of the independent sort in the house for a week or two, said the beetle. The rules and regulations of the board would soon bring their spirit down for him.
Let him alone for that, replied the undertaker. So saying, he smiled approvingly to calm the rising wrath of indignant parish officer. Mr. Bumble lifted his crooked hat, took a handkerchief from the inside of the crown, wiped from his forehead the perspiration with which his rage had endangered, fixed the cocked hat on again, and turning to the undertaker, said in a calmer voice,
Well, what about the boy?
Oh, replied the undertaker, why, you know, Mr. Bumble, I pay a good deal towards the poor rates. Said Mr. Bumble. Well, replied the undertaker, I was thinking that if I pay so much towards 'em, I've a right to get as much out of 'em as I can, Mr. Bumble, and so
And so I think I'll take the boy for myself. Mr. Bumble grasped the undertaker by the arm and led him into the building. Mr. Sowerberry was closeted with the board for 5 minutes, and it was arranged that Oliver should go to him that evening upon liking, a phrase which means, in the case of the parish apprentice, that if the master find upon a short trial that he can get enough work out of a boy without putting too much food into him, he shall have him for a term of years to do what he likes with. When Oliver was taken before the gentleman in quotes that evening and informed that he was to go that night as general house lad to a coffin maker's, and that if he complained of the situation or ever came back to the parish again, he would be sent to sea, there to be drowned or knocked on the head, as the case might be. He evidenced so little emotion that they, by common consent, pronounced him a hardened young rascal and ordered Mr. Bumble to remove him forthwith. Now, although it was very natural that the boy of all people in the world should feel in a great state of virtuous astonishment and horror at the slightest tokens of want of feeling on the part of anybody they would rather out, in this particular instance, the simple fact was that Oliver, instead of possessing too little feeling, possessed rather too much, and was in a fair way of being reduced, for life, to a state of brutal stupidity and sullenness by the ill usage he had received. He heard the news of his destination in perfect silence, and having had his luggage put into his hand, which was not very difficult to carry, inasmuch as it was all comprised within the limits of a brown paper parcel about a half a foot square by 3 inches deep. He pulled his cap over his eyes, and once more attaching himself to Mr. Bumble's coat cuff, was led away by that dignitary to a new scene of suffering. Ooh, what YouTube channels do you like? That's a good question. I like quite a few of them. So I've got some friends on here that I've been following for a minute. Um, my friend Acosta's channel, Against the World G, just hit 600 subs. So he's going to be monetized here pretty soon, and we've got a whole bunch of content coming out there. Because of him, because of Against the World G, I know about Chris the Fresh, who is an awesome rapper, musician and dancer. He's actually a break dancer. I hope he does too. Right now he's 26 and poor, but we will definitely get around that soon. Because millennials, we were all poor for a good long minute in here. Then there's Don't Watch Continue, who just kind of was on. I was on a live stream with Against the World G, and Don't Watch Continue got on there and just started talking his little stuff, and he made us laugh a few times. And basically, ever since then, I've been following him, and he's been even helping me plug some videos. As far as the bigger ones, Knowledge Hub is basically more of a comedy channel than a knowledge channel, and it is freaking great. Same guy's brother, I think, has a really, really dope channel, and it's called the Alternate History Hub. And I've actually just got his book, so I'm going to be reviewing that as soon as I'm done with this massive chore. But let's see. This is going to be my next book. It's significantly shorter, and that makes me very happy. Oh, boy. But let's see. Then there's some other big channels that I really love. I love like a bunch of these history channels that are on here. But lately, my favorite one has been this Brazilian dude who just talks all kinds of smack about ancient Rome. And I do mean talk smack. It's all like silly memes to go over history. And that channel's called Dova Hattie. If
If you've got the patience for it, I guarantee you will laugh and actually learn something in there. Um, so, just quite a few channels I'm really into. Trying to think. Infographics is all right. Biographics is really good. Um, like I said, I do a lot of educational stuff. Spelled all crazy, who's really tight with Continue as well. And I was on his stream earlier. There's pretty much anyone who subs to me deserves your attention. I'm just gonna throw it out there. But not really though. But only if you're interested. That's really what boils down to. So yes, they I guess they do in my opinion, but that doesn't mean anything. I really like Dashi XP back when he was really active, and Lowbrow Studios. They do a lot of the two. That's two completely different channels that do like a lot of like really original content. Lowbrow does like all animated stuff, and it's really dope because they've got a few thousand subscribers, and they're coming off of that College Humor collapse that happened a few years ago. They used to do some really funny stuff on College Humor, but it was just too corporate. Anyway, probably more money than me. Hope he gets more money than me. I don't deserve it. You deserve money, Fishy, but you're a kid now. So you just have to wait till you're older and enjoy being a kid while you can, and make more videos so you can eventually get 500 subscribers and start saving up for college, so that when you're an adult, you don't ever have to worry about money when you're a grown man. That's just a fact. Oh boy. For some time, Mr. Bumble drew Oliver along without notice or remark, for the beetle carried his head very erect, as a beetle always should, and it being a very windy day, little Oliver was completely enshrouded by the skirts of Mr. Bumble's coat, as they blew open and enclosed a great advantage of his flapped waistcoat and drab plush knee breeches. As they drew near to their destination, however, Mr. Bumble thought it expedient to look down and see that the boy was in good order for inspection by his new master, which he accordingly did with a fit and becoming air of gracious patronage.
Oliver,
said Mr. Bumble. Yes, sir, replied Oliver in a low, tremulous voice.
Pull that cap off your eyes and hold up your head, sir.
Although Oliver did as he was desired at once, he passed the back of his unoccupied hand briskly across his eyes. He left a tear in them when he looked up at his conductor. As Mr. Bumble gazed sternly upon him, it rolled down his cheek. It was followed by another and another. The child made a strong effort, but it was an unsuccessful one. Withdrawing his hand from Mr. Bumble's, he covered his face with both, and wept until the tears sprung out from between his thin, bony fingers. Well, exclaimed Mr. Bumble, stopping short and darting his little charge a look of intense malignity. Oh my gosh. Toilet paper and hand sanitizer used to be lonely. There's zero on the shelves at any stores. Yeah. Man, I used to be able to find hand sanitizer so cheap and just everywhere. And now it's even hard to keep it in my car, because if I've got one thing in the car, then like anyone that I see is going to immediately, hey man, can I like give you something for that? No, this is my only thing of hand sanitizer. But I need some hand sanitizer. I don't know what we're going to do about that. But, well, exclaimed Mr. Bumble, stopping short and darting his little charge a look of intense malignity.
Well, of all the ungratefullest and worst deposed boys I was ever I'll see, Oliver. You are the. No, no, sir, sobbed Oliver, clinging to the hand which held the well known cane. No, sir, I will be good indeed, indeed, indeed I will, sir. I am a very little boy, sir, and it is so. So what? Inquired Mr. Bumble in amazement. So lonely, sir, so very lonely, cried the child. Everybody hates me. Oh, sir, don't pray to be cross with me. The child beat his hand upon his heart and looked in his companion's face with tears of real agony. Mr. Bumble regal. Gosh, I'm just stumbling over words left and right today. Mr. Bumble regarded Oliver's piteous and helpless look with some astonishment. For a few seconds, hemmed 3 or 4 times in a husky manner, and after muttering something about that troublesome cough, bade Oliver dry his eyes and be a good boy. Then once more taking his hand, he walked on with him in silence. The undertaker, who had just put up the shutters of his shop, was making some entries in his day book by the light of the most appropriately dismal candle when Mr. Bumble entered. "Aha!" said the undertaker, looking up from the book and pausing in the middle of a word. "Is that you, Bumble?" "No one else, Mr. Sowerby," replied the Bumble. Replied the Beetle. Ugh, I keep getting Bumble and Beetle confused even. That's just ridiculous. If a person traded me $1 for a hand sanitizer, would I take it because I'm a gold digger? I mean, oh boy, I'm part Jewish, so I probably would take $1. Just saying. No, that's got nothing to do with Jewish. Everything with being cheap. Ooh, by muchy. I would probably take it for $1,000. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think if it was the absolute last hand sanitizer ever made, then it would require more than $1,000. Other than that, yeah, I would definitely give take $1,000 for my last hand sanitizer. I'm just saying. Okay. Okay. Well, let's see. No one else, Mr. Sorbury, replied the Beetle. Here I've brought the boy. Oliver made a bow. Oh, that's the boy, is it? Said the undertaker, raising a candle above his head to get a better view of Oliver. Mrs. Sowerberry, will you have the goodness to come in here a moment, my dear? Mrs. Sowerberry entered from the little room behind the shop and presented the form of a short, thin, squeezed up woman with a vixenish countenance. Mm. So he got a smexy wife, I guess. Dope. Way to go, Sowerberry. Um, My dear, Mr. Sowerberry deferentially, this is the boy from the workhouse that I told you of. Oliver bowed again. Dear me, said the undertaker's wife, he's very small. Why, he is rather small, replied Mr. Bumble, looking at Oliver as if it were his fault that he was no bigger. He is small, there's no denying it, but he'll grow, Mrs. Sowerberry, he'll grow. I dare say he will, replied the lady pettishly. On our victuals and our drink, I see no saving in parish children, not I, for they always cost more to keep than they're worth. However, men always think they know best. There, get downstairs, little bag o' bones. With this, the undertaker's wife opened the side door and pushed Oliver down a steep flight of stairs into a stone cell, damp and dark, forming the anteroom of the coal cellar.
and denominated the kitchen, where sat a slatternly girl in shoes down at the heel and blue worsted stockings very much out of repair. "Here, Charlotte," said Mrs. Sowerberry, who had followed Oliver down. "Give this boy some of the cold bits that we will put by for trip. He hasn't come home since the morning, so he may go without 'em. I dare say the boy isn't too dainty to eat 'em, are you, boy?" God, I could never get away with calling somebody a boy in this day and age, even if they are. Yeah. Can I spell what you look like and what you are? Uh, I thought you could see a pretty good idea of what I look like. I had a little patch of chin hair for the videos I was doing, reviewing books at Shaggy. And I'm white to black people and less than white to other white people because I'm like part Native American. My mom's family's all Jewish. Um, I refuse to be one of those Trump people, and I just don't pigeonhole myself into any way, shape, or form. So people really dislike that. So there, you kind of got an idea. um, Also, I'm tall. My friends are actually like, "Well, thank you for that. I will take that compliment." Um, but let's see. Um, where was I? Oliver, whose eyes had glistened at the mention of meat, and who was trembling with eagerness to devour it, replied in the negative, and a pail of coarse broken victuals was set before him. I wish some well-fed philosopher, whose meat and drink turn to gall within him, whose blood is ice, whose heart is iron, could have seen Oliver clutching at the dainty, oh gosh, viands that the dog had neglected. Oh my gosh. I wish he could have witnessed the horrible avidity with which Oliver tore the bits asunder with all the ferocity of famine. There is only one thing I should like better, and that would be to see the philosopher making the same sort of meal himself with the same relish. "Well," said the undertaker's wife when Oliver had finished his supper, which she had regarded in silent horror with fearful auguries of his future appetites. "Have you done?" There being nothing, e- instead of edible, he wrote eatable. How are you going to use auguries and then not? There being nothing eatable within his reach, Oliver replied in the affirmative. "Then come with me," said Mrs. Sowerberry, taking up a dim and dirty lamp and leading the way up the stairs. "Your bed's under the counter. You don't mind sleeping among coffins, I suppose, but it doesn't matter much whether you do or don't, for you can't sleep anywhere else. Come, don't keep me here all night." Oliver lingered no longer, but meekly followed his new mistress. Okay. Um, Thank you, Fishy. You are awesome too. I am not calling no 12-year-old boy handsome because I am not insert a celebrity here. Boy, but I think I should give a little bit more background here. Oliver Twist actually came out in 1837, which makes it the last great work of literature of the Georgian era. Wow, and you understand what I'm saying in this. That's incredible. But this is like the last great work of literature in the Georgian era, which is really saying something. But no, you're cool, man. Don't apologize. That's awesome. Um, it's yeah. So Queen Victoria came to power in, I want to say, June of 1837. So as far as English literature goes, there's like really not a whole lot that can top the cultural and social impact of this, except works that the same guy Charles Dickens wrote like years after the fact. So this is why a lot of the stuff in this book sounds absolutely awful, but to them it was just kind of commonplace. Like, oh yeah, the guy beating his donkey, that's just normal. Them starving and treating a boy like crap, that's just normal. People going to join the British Navy and basically being murdered on the ship. 1837 rules, it's normal shit. I'm cussing around children. I'm an awful person. But we just finished chapter 4. So here is chapter 5. Oliver mingles with new associates going to a funeral for the first time. He forms an unfavorable notion of his master's business. I just keep seeing the chicken SpongeBob meme whenever you type like that. I'm not gonna lie. Oh boy. People your age and European people are like the two main groups that play Fortnite. So if you like Fortnite, pretty much anyone that I mentioned that's from Europe is probably doing a stream of it right now. So except for Continue, he's really more into the fighting games like Tekken and Mortal Kombat, and his favorite is Life is Strange, which is why he's been doing like a Dutch language rap mixtape called Life is Strange, I think. um, but let me just dive back into this and try and keep it pushing. We're gonna at least try and get through chapter 5 if you want. I can't live stream. Aw. It's okay, Fishy. You'll get there. You'll get there, I promise. But Oliver, being left to himself in the undertaker's shop, set the lamp down on the workman's bench and gazed timidly about him with a feeling of awe and dread, which many people a good deal older than he will be at no loss to understand. An unfinished coffin on black trestles, which stood in the middle of the shop, looked so gloomy and deathlike that a cold tremble came over him every time his eyes wandered in the direction of the dismal object, from which he almost expected to see some frightful form slowly rear its head, to drive him mad with terror. Against the wall were ranged in regular array a long row of elm boards cut into the same shape, looking in the dim light like high-shouldered ghosts with their hands in their breeches pockets. Coffin plates, elm chips, bright-headed nails, and shreds of black cloth lay scattered on the floor, and the wall behind the counter was ornamented, more Dickens words, with a lovely representation of two mutes in very stiff-necked clothes on a duty at a large private door, with a hearse drawn by 4 black steeds approaching in the distance. The shop was close and hot, and the atmosphere seemed tainted with the smell of coffins. The recess beneath the counter in which his flock mattress was thrust looked like a grave. Nor were these the only dismal feelings which depressed Oliver. He was alone in a strange place, and we all know how chilled and desolate the best of us will sometimes feel in such a situation. The boy had no friends to care for or to care for him. The regret of no recent separation was fresh in his mind. The absence of no loved and well-remembered face sunk heavily into his heart. But his heart was heavy, notwithstanding, and he wished, as he crept into his narrow bed, that that were his coffin, and that he could be laid in a calm, lasting sleep in the churchyard ground, with the tall grass waving gently above his head, and the sound of the old deep bell to soothe him in his sleep. Uh, for some reason, on mobile, you can't live stream until on 1,000 subs. Yeah, I noticed that. It's really weird because I wanted to do these in my car and outside and stuff, and I've got to do them on my laptop. Uh, my friend, Against the World G, does all of his live streams on like a little camera that's hooked up to his TV so that he can get a picture-in-picture going with him in the games. Um, kind of stinks, but the goal is just to get up there with getting the subs. So, if you want to diversify, man, you can do whatever you want within reason. Uh, there's all kinds of channels out there. Just think about the content you like putting up. um, but just remember that you got it way better than Oliver does. So y'all are the same age, and he's over here sleeping in a literal coffin because he doesn't have anywhere better to sleep. And, seriously though, that's hundreds of years ago. That's not here nor there. If you ever need any, I guess, anywhere that you want to vent, you use me, abuse me, man. I'm here. If you need to vent, if you're having a tough situation, I will try to not be a jerk about it, because once you're grown, kid problems just don't really feel like they're worth your time, but your mental health is important. And yes, you are awesome, Fishy. And I keep getting like a couple people who just pop up for like a second and then go away, and I love y'all too. So, um, but Oliver was awakened in the morning by a loud kicking at the outside of the shop door, which, before he could hurtle on his clothes, was repeated in an angry and impetuous manner about 25 times. When he began to undo the chain, his legs desisted, and a voice began. "Open the door, will ya?" cried the voice which belonged to the legs which had directly kicked the door. "I will directly, sir," replied Oliver, undoing the chain and turning the key. "I suppose you're a new boy, ain't ya?" said the voice through the keyhole. "Yes, sir," replied Oliver. "How old are you?" required the voice. "10, sir," replied Oliver. Um, he actually he's older than you. That's dope. If you ever want to play a role, they definitely have some versions of this for plays on line. They've even had like really, I think in the 90s there was even like an Oliver Twist kids show. Just like there was a Sherlock Holmes in the Future show. And you will never ever see a George Orwell show. I can guarantee you that much. How do you get so many subs? Um, I don't know, because I haven't got there. But you have to be responsive with your viewers and just kind of produce content that they like. There are actually like tutorial videos and things that you can do. There are hashtags you can use in your descriptions that help as well. I'm really fairly new to all of this, so Against the World is probably a better person to tell you about these things. At the very least, you can compliment him on having the best dreadlocks out here right now. So let me see. Okay. "Then I'll whoop you when I get in," said the voice. More whoopings. Man, they really loved abuse back in the Georgian era. "You just see if I don't. As sure, more worker sprat." And having made this obliging promise, The voice began to whistle. Oliver had been too often subjected to the process to which the very expressive monosyllable just recorded bears reference, to entertain the smallest doubt that the owner of the voice, whoever he might be, would redeem his pledge most honorably. He drew back the bolts with a trembling hand and opened the door. For a second or two, Oliver glanced up at the street and down the street and over the way, impressed with the belief that the unknown who had addressed him through the keyhole had walked a few paces off to warm himself, for nobody did he see but a post in front of the house, eating a slice of bread and butter, which he cut into wedges the size of his mouth with a clasped knife and then consumed with great dexterity. I'm gonna go watch a tutorial for more subs, and I'm gonna share this with my friend BRB. Do you? I'm just gonna keep reading if you want me to fill you in when you get back. Um, so, excuse me, I just cut some grass earlier, and for some reason, like a combination of making my allergies go ham and making my doing actual work just kind of threw me off today. I am not lazy, future employers. Let me see now. I beg your pardon, sir, said Oliver at length, seeing that no other visitor made his appearance. Did you knock? Or kicked, replied the charity boy. Do you want a coffin, sir? Inquired Oliver innocently. At this the charity boy looked monstrous fierce, and said that Oliver would want one before long if he cut jokes with his superiors in that way. You don't know who I am, I suppose, workers, the charity boy, in continuation, descending from the top of a post, meanwhile with edifying gravity. No, sir, rejoined Oliver, which a rejoin is a reply to a reply. So that's kind of dope. But I'm Mr. Noah Claypool, said the charity boy, and you're under me. Take down the shutters, you other young ruffian. With this, Mr. Claypool administered a kick to Oliver and entered the shop with a dignified air which did him great credit. It is difficult for a large-headed, small-eyed youth of lumbering make and heavy countenance to look dignified under any circumstances, but is more especially so when superadded to these personal attractions are a red nose and yellow smalls. Oh my god! So he's a little. So he's like a childhood alcoholic. That's wonderful. And broken a pane of glass in his efforts to stagger away beneath the weight of the first one to a small court at the side of the house, in which they have kept during the day, was graciously assisted by Noah, who, having consoled him with that assurance that he'd catch it, condescended to help him. Mr. Sowerberry came down soon after. Shortly afterwards, Mr. Sowerberry appeared, and Oliver, having caught it in the fulfillment of Noah's prediction, followed that young gentleman down the stairs to breakfast. Come near the freaking bits that I've put out on the cover on the bread pan. There's your tea. Take it away to that box and drink it there. And make haste, for they'll want you to mind the shop, d'ye hear? D'ye hear, workers? Said Noah Claypool. Lord, Noah, said Charlotte. What a rum creature you are. Why don't you let the boy alone? Let him alone? Said Noah. Why, everybody lets him alone enough for the matter of that.
Neither his father nor his mother will ever interfere with him. All his relations let him his own way pretty well, eh, Charlotte? He.
God, anyone who laughs like that should not be trusted. um, he just it's he, he with exclamation points at every he. Uh, on your queer show. Queer meaning weird, not homosexual in this context. Uh, said Charlotte, bursting into a hearty laugh, on which she was joined by Noah, after which they both looked scornfully at poor Oliver Twist as he sat shivering on the box in the coldest corner of the room and ate the stale pieces which had been specially reserved for him. Noah was a charity boy, but not a workhouse orphan. No chance child was he, for he could trace his genealogy all the way back to his parents, who lived hard by, his mother being a washerwoman, and his father a drunken soldier, discharged with a wooden leg, and a diurnal pension of 2 pence halfpenny, and an unsatiable fraction. Oy vey. So this is where the term Dickensian comes from. When you just describe stuff that's almost cartoon bad all the doggone time. Let's see. Yeah, Charles Dickens really had kind of a rough life to begin with, so that's why for him it just comes so easily. Or came so easily. The man's been dead for 150 years. Let me see. But now that fortune had cast in his way a nameless orphan, at whom even the meanest could point a finger of scorn, he retorted on him with interest. This affords charming food for contemplation. It shows us what beautiful thing in human nature sometimes is, and how impartially the same amiable qualities are developed in the finest lord and the dirtiest charity boy. Oliver had been sojourning at the undertaker's some weeks or a month. Mr. and Mrs. Sowerberry, at the shop being shut up, were taking their supper in the little back parlor, when Mr. Sowerberry, after several deferential glances at his wife, said,
My dear.
he was going to say more, but Mrs. Sowerberry, looking up with a particularly unpropitious aspect, he stopped short.
Well,
said Mrs. Sowerberry sharply.
nothing, my dear,
said Mr. Sowerberry.
Oh, you brute,
said Mrs. Sowerberry.
Not at all, my dear,
said Mr. Sowerberry humbly.
I thought you didn't want to hear, my dear. I was only going to say.
Oh,
boy. Don't consult me, pray. I don't want to intrude upon your secrets.
As Mrs. Sowerberry said this, she gave a hysterical laugh which threatened violent consequences, because of course she did. Okay, basically it was just his superior showed up on the job, and it's another kid who speaks and acts like a grown man because he's been through enough to justify it, and already has like the appearance of someone who drinks all the time. They were eating breakfast, and now Mr. Sowerberry is talking to his wife. So,
but my dear,
said Mr. Sowerberry,
I want to ask your advice.
No, no, don't ask mine,
replied Mrs. Sowerberry in an affecting manner.
Ask somebody else's. Here.
No, that's out of the quotes now. Oh my gosh. Here there was another hysterical laugh, which frightened Mr. Sowerberry very much. This is a very common and much approved matrimonial course of treatment, which is often very effective. It at once reduced Mr. Sowerberry to begging as a special favor to be allowed to say what Mrs. Sowerberry was most curious to hear. After a short altercation of less than 3/4 of an hour's duration, the permission was most graciously conceded.
It's only about young Twist, my dear,
Said Mr. Sowerberry.
a very good-looking boy at that, my dear.
He need be, for he eats enough,
Observed the lady.
There's an expression of melancholy in his face, my dear,
Resumed Mr. Sowerberry.
which is very interesting, for he would make a delightful mute, my love.
Mrs. Sowerberry looked up with an expression of considerable wonderment. Mr. Sowerberry remarked it, and
You would have a most superb effect.
Mrs. Sowerberry, who had a good deal of taste in undertaking way, was much struck by the novelty of this idea, as it would have been compromising her dignity to have said so. Under existing circumstances, she merely inquired, with much sharpness, why such an obvious suggestion had not presented itself to her husband's mind before. Oh boy. God, this is a book and a half. I'm only on page 36. Reading this out loud was not a good idea. Mr. Sowerberry rightly construed this as an acquiescence in his proposition. It was speedily determined, therefore, that Oliver should be at once initiated into the masteries of the trade, and with this view that he should accompany his master on the very next occasion of his services being required. The occasion was not long in coming. Half an hour after breakfast the next morning, Mr. Bumble entered the shop and, supporting his cane against the counter, drew forth his large leathern pocket-book, from which he selected a small scrap of paper, which he handed to Sowerberry. "Aha!" said the undertaker, glancing it over with a lively countenance. Okay.
An order for a coffin, eh? The coffin first and the proper funeral afterwards,
replied Mr. Bumble, fastening the strap of the leathern pocketbook, which, like himself, was very corpulent. God, I love all the words he uses for fat. Stout, corpulent. Sheesh. The way people talk about it, skinny kids like you are supposed to exist, Fishy. Man. No, it's good though. Let me shut up.
Bacon, said the undertaker, looking from a scrap of paper to Mr. Bumble. I've heard that name before.
Oh wow, I just got a whole bunch of notifications pop up. But I'm trying to, come on, focus. Okay, so Bumble shook his head as he replied,
Obstinate people, Mr. Sowerberry. Very obstinate. Proud, too, I'm afraid, sir.
Proud, eh? replied Mr. Sowerberry with a sneer.
Come, that's too much. Oh, it's sickening,
replied the beetle.
Anti-monitor, Mr. Sowerberry.
So it is, acquiesced the undertaker. That's when you agree. Acquiesce is such a dope word. Is when you agree to somebody that you don't actually agree with, just to get him to shut up. That's all he does when he's talking to this guy.
We only heard of the family night before last,
said the beetle,
and we shouldn't have known anything about them. Then only a woman who lodges in the same house made an application to the parochial committee for them to send the parochial surgeon to see a woman as was very bad. He had gone out to dinner, but his prentice,
said the undertaker.
promptness indeed,
Replied the beetle. I hate doing these voices. Why'd I start doing these voices?
word that the medicine won't suit his wife's complaint, and so she shan't take it. Says she shan't take it, sir. Good, strong, wholesome medicine, as was given with great success to 2 Irish labourers and a coal heaver only a week before. Sent 'em for nothing with a blacking bottle in, and he sends back word that she shan't take it, sir.
As the atrocity presented itself to Mr. Bumble's mind in full force, he struck the counter sharply with his cane, and became flushed with indignation. "Well," said the undertaker, "I never did—"
Never did, sir,
ejaculated the beetle. Really? That's the word we gotta go with here, Dickens? Okay. I don't understand. I didn't understand the comment that you commented on my idea, but now I get it. What's that you're referring to? Okay.
Oh boy. Never did, sir,
said the beetle. I'm not saying that word again.
No, nor nobody never did. But now she's dead. We've got to bury her, and that's the direction, and the sooner it's done, the better.
Thus saying, Mr. Bumble put on his cocked hat wrong side first in a fever of parochial excitement and flounced out of the shop.
Why, he was so angry, Oliver, that he forgot to even ask after you,
said Mr. Sowerberry, looking after the beetle as he strode down the street.
Yes, sir,
replied Oliver, who carefully kept himself out of sight during the interview, and who was shaking from head to foot at the mere recollection of the sound of Mr. Bumble's voice. He needn't have taken the trouble to shrink from Mr. Bumble's glance, however, for that functionary on whom the prediction of the gentleman in the white waistcoat had made very strong impression thought that now the undertaker had got Oliver upon trial, the subject was better avoided until such time as he should be firmly bound for 7 years, and all danger of his being returned upon the hands of the parish should be thus ineffectually and legally overcome.
Well, said Mr. Sowerberry, taking up his hat, the sooner this job is done, the better. Now look after the shop. Oliver, put on your cap and come with me.
Oliver obeyed and followed his master on his professional mission. They walked on for some time, through the most crowded and densely inhabited part of the town, and then striking down a narrow street more dirty and miserable than any they had yet passed through, paused to look for the house which was the object of their search. The houses on either side were high and large, but very old, and tenanted by people of the poorest class, as their neglected appearance would have sufficiently denoted, without the concurrent testimony afforded by the squalid looks of the few men and women who, with folded arms and bodies half doubled, occasionally stalked along. A great many of the tenements had shop fronts, but these were fast closed and moldering away. Oh, dope. I'm glad you got that. Only the upper rooms being inhabited. Some houses which had become insecure from age and decay were prevented from falling into the street by huge beams of wood reared against the walls, and firmly planted in the road. But even these crazy dens seem to have been selected as the nightly haunts of some of the houseless wretches, for many of the rough boards which supplied the place of door and window were wrenched from their positions to afford an aperture wide enough for the passage of a human body. The kennel was stagnant and filthy. The very rats, which here and there lay putrefying in its rottenness, were hideous with famine. Um, yeah, let me see. Yeah, that little pillow fight you always have. That looked like fun. I would have done some crap like that when I was a kid for sure. I probably still would if it wasn't weirdly inappropriate to go around smacking other grown folks with pillows. I've even got like a little one hanging around here somewhere that I could just walk up and just start. But let me see now. Okay. There was neither knocker nor bell handle at the open door where Oliver and his master stopped. So, groping his way cautiously through the dark passage and bidding Oliver keep close to him and not be afraid, the undertaker mounted to the top of the first flight of stairs and stumbled 14. The undertaker at once saw enough of what the room contained to know it was the apartment to which he had been directed. He stepped in, and Oliver followed him. There was no fire in the room, but a man was crouching mechanically over an empty stove. An old woman, too, had drawn a low stool to the cold hearth and was sitting beside him. There were some ragged children in the corner, and in small recesses opposite the door there lay upon the ground something covered with an old blanket. Oliver shuddered as he cast his eyes toward the place and crept involuntarily closer to his master, for though it was covered up, the boy felt that it was a corpse. The man's face was very thin and pale. His hair and beard were grisly, and his eyes were bloodshot. The woman's face was wrinkled, her two remaining teeth protruded over her under lip, and her eyes were bright and piercing. Oliver was afraid to look at either her or the man. They seemed so like the rats they had seen outside.
Nobody shall go near her.
Said the man, starting fiercely up as he approached the undertaker in the recess.
Keep back, damn you, keep back if you've a life to lose.
Nonsense, my good man, said the undertaker, who was pretty well used to misery in all of its shapes. Nonsense.
I tell you,
Said the man, clenching his hands and stamping furiously on the floor.
I tell you, I won't have her put in the ground. She couldn't rest there. The worms would worry her, not eat her. She's so worn away.
The undertaker offered no reply to this raving, but produced a tape from his pocket, knelt down for a moment by the side of the body.
Ah,
said the man, bursting into tears and sinking on his knees at the feet of the dead woman.
kneel down, kneel down, kneel round her, every one of you, and mark my words. I say she was starved to death. I never knew how bad she was till the fever came upon her and till her bones were starting through her skin.
Ugh, Dickensian. Too Dickensian.
There was neither fire nor candle. She died in the dark. In the dark. She couldn't even see her children's faces, though we heard her gasping out their names. I begged for her in the streets and they sent me to prison. When I came back, she was dying, and all the blood in me heart was dried up, for they starved her to death. I swear it before the God that saw it. They starved her.
He twined his hands in his hair, and with a loud scream he rolled groveling on the floor, his eyes fixed and foam gushing from his lips. So they got really dark really fast, but we should have known because he's apprenticing for an undertaker. And they did not have medical care like that in the 1800s. So this guy got thrown in jail just for trying to scrounge up some extra money on the street. And during that time, his daughter took a huge turn for the worse. And now she is no longer anything other than the shell of what she once was, I guess. Dickens. Feel good novel of the century. Oh, I've ripped that off of the overly sarcastic people, which another channel I kind of enjoy is Red. Oh boy. But yeah, so that's actually something today too. They are you talking about the video that I made for April Fool's Day? Phone coming out of lip. Oh no, you're talking about foam coming out of his lips in the book. It's because he is sobbing so hard that he's like drooling and snot's running down, and just nothing. All that positive comes from when you just are that upset about something. Is not the best feeling in the world, that's for sure. So yeah, the crazy thing is they still actually will give people misdemeanor charges just for going out and trying to beg for money. And I guess the justification for it is that a lot of them are on drugs, and there are homeless shelters and stuff, but they really don't do enough for the homeless people. I thought like teddy bear foam. No. There's number one. This book came out like 80 years before the teddy bear was a thing. So no, the teddy bear was invented in like the I want to say the late 1900s, or maybe even the early 19 teens, like because they called it Teddy as a tribute to Teddy Roosevelt. Yeah. Don't try to avoid people who are sobbing hysterically, unless it's like someone you actually care about, I guess. Because it gets. I've been there. When you get really sad, it just gets gross. It really does. Because when the tears start coming, your tear ducts are close to your nose, so your nose starts running. And then if you try to talk or say anything, you like are doing too much of this to really like swallow or anything. So your mouth starts getting all frothy and gross. Although, yeah, that's that was not the point of my April Fool's thing. Oh God, I don't even know if I can get back into this right now. This is rough. Oof. And Oliver's experiencing this. This was life back in the day for people. You know, nowadays we kind of take advantage of the fact that just about everybody knows their grandparent. Not everybody, but most people know their grandparents. Back in the day, that wasn't always the case. So people just died from the worst possible things. And it's definitely one great thing about the modern era is that people have learned to take care of each other a lot more than we used to. So even though there's definitely plenty of terrible stuff that needs help, but you know, it is what it is. Context is everything. But yeah, for lack of a better description, except that when a dog is doing it, it's usually because they're, playing around, enjoying themselves, or they're really mad about something. If a person is that upset that they're frothing at the mouth, then they're yeah. But anyway, the terrified children cried bitterly. But the old woman, who had hitherto remained quiet as if she had been wholly deaf to all that passed, menaced them into silence, and having unloosed the man's cravat, who still remained extended on the ground, tottered towards the undertaker.
She was my daughter,
Said the old woman, nodding her head in the direction of the corpse, and speaking with an idiotic leer more ghastly than even the presence of death had such a place.
Lord, Lord, where's he strange as I who gave birth to her, and who is a woman that should be alive and merry now?
I don't know this number. I'm not picking up. Ah, boy. Oh, boy.
And she's lying there so cold and stiff. Lord, Lord, to think of it, it's as good as a play, as good as a play.
As the wretched creature mumbled and chuckled in her hideous merriment, the undertaker turned to go away.
Stop, stop,
said the old woman in a loud whisper.
Will she be buried tomorrow, or next day, or tonight? I laid her out, and I must walk, you know. Send me a large cloak, a good warm one, for it is bitter cold. We should have cake and wine too before we go. Never mind saying some bread, only a loaf of bread and a cup of water. Shall we have some bread, dear?
She said eagerly, catching at the undertaker's coat as he once more moved towards the door.
Yes, yes, said the undertaker. Of course, anything, everything.
Oh, thank God the end's in sight. Shaggy, do you have a girlfriend? I have some female friends that I talk to pretty regularly, but I don't really believe in labels. And for the most part, neither do they. So, in order to really have that kind of exclusivity in a relationship, she'd have to be someone really special who can handle someone that can handle the insane craziness that is me, just in general. Extremely lonely. No, I've got plenty of friends and female friends, and I'm not that lonely. Hell, I live with my parents. Sometimes it's hard to get any alone time. Um, uh, what about you? Do you have a girlfriend? I'm gonna get back in on this. He disengaged himself from the old woman's grasp, and drawing Oliver after him, hurried away. The next day, the family having been meanwhile relieved with a half-quartern loaf and a piece of cheese, left with them by Mr. Bumble himself, Oliver and his master returned to the miserable abode where Mr. Bumble had already arrived, accompanied by 4 men from the workhouse who were to act as bearers. An old black cloak had been thrown over the rags of the old woman and the man, and the bear coffin, having been screwed down, was hoisted onto the shoulders of the bearers and carried into the street.
Now you must put your
Oh wait, never mind.
now you must put your best leg foremost, old lady,
whispered Sourberry in the old woman's ear.
We're rather late, and it won't do to keep the clergyman waiting. Move on, my men, as quickly as you like.
Barry walked at a good smart pace in front, and Oliver, whose legs were not so long as his master's, ran by his side. Why are you lonely, Fishy? You should have friends and stuff to do, man. I'm not lonely. I'm just weird. I'm pretty accepting of the fact that I'm weird, and I'm cool with it. But there was not so great a necessity for hurrying as Mr. Sowerberry had anticipated, however, for when they reached the obscure corner of the churchyard in which the nettles grew and where the parish graves were made, the clergyman had not arrived, and the clerk who was sitting by the vestry room fire seemed to think it by no means improbable that it might be an hour or so before he came. So they put the bier on the brink of the grave, and the two mourners waited patiently in the damp clay, with the cold rain drizzling down, while the ragged boys, whom the spectacle had attracted into the churchyard, played a noisy game of hide and seek among the tombstones, or varied their amusements by jumping back and forwards over the coffin. Mr. Sowerberry and Bumble, being personal friends of the clerk, sat by the fire with him and read the paper. At length, after the lapse of something more than an hour, Mr. Bumble and Sowerberry and the clerk were seen. Mr. Bumble then threshing a boy or two to keep up appearances, and the reverend gentleman, having read as much of the burial service as could be compressed into 4 minutes, gave his surplice to the clerk and walked away again.
Now, Bill,
Said Sowerberry to Sowerberry to the gravedigger,
fill her up.
it was no very difficult task, for the grave was so full that the uppermost coffin was within a few feet of the surface. The gravedigger shoveled in the earth, stamped it loosely down with his feet, shouldered his spade, and walked off, followed by the boys, who murmured very loud complaints at the fun being over so soon. Oh yay, there's two people in the chat. Woot woot. Whoever else is in the chat, please talk. And he left. It's okay. Oh boy,
Come, my good fellow.
said Bumble, tapping the man on the back.
They want to shut up the yard.
The man, who had never once moved since he had taken his situation by the graveside, started, raised his head, stared at the person who had addressed him, walked for a few paces, and fell down in a swoon. The crazy old woman was too much preoccupied in the bewailing the loss of her cloak, which the undertaker had taken off, to pay him any attention, so they threw a can of cold water over him, and when he came to, saw him safely out of the churchyard, locked the gate, and departed their different ways.
Well, Oliver,
Said Sowerberry as they walked home.
how do you like it?
Pretty well, thank you, sir, replied Oliver with considerable hesitation. Not very much, sir.
Oh, you'll get used to it in Oliver. You'll get used to it in time, Oliver,
Says Sowerberry.
Nothing when you are used to it, boy.
Oliver wondered in his own mind whether it had taken a very long time to get Mr. Sowerberry used to it. But he had thought it better not to ask the question, and walked back to the shop, thinking over all he had seen and heard. Okay.
Just want to take a quick break because this is killing me.
Oh boy. I'm sure the next chapter is not going to be nearly as bad. But I feel like screaming the words you just typed in there. Fishy. Chapter 6 is Oliver being goaded by the taunts of Noah, rouses into action, and rather astonishes him. Yes, Frick, like the guy who made a dam collapse in Pennsylvania back in the before any of us was alive, and killed like 300 people, and basically made his name a bad word. Here, you wanted to see what channels I like. Oh snap! Continues doing his little thing with the Donkey Kong channels. These are the missing Donkey Kong channels.
Nice. Oh yeah, I made it. Oh, another running barrel. Ugh. Richie! Huh? I'm gonna keep coming back until somebody remembers seeing Richie. Oh, this is that stage that I mentioned before with the minecart. Oh, this stage is so annoying. Save. There we go. Here we go. Give me a break. Come on. Oh. Yeah, there we go. So far it's going good. Come on, jump. Yeah. Come on, yes. Fuck me.
And now
Never
he's getting kicked off now. I'm gonna have to.
Come on, don't fuck me, please.
Oh snap! Now you are here too.
Oh, come on, please. Thank you.
Yeah, I just saw that. That's dope. I just had to tell him too, because that's great.
Unbelievable. Hey, Fishy. Welcome to the live stream. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, he said, "What's up?"
Hey, Shaggy. Welcome to the live stream, man. Hey, I was making a video about you today. The video is not done yet, but soon I will release a video about your channel.
Word.
Just to let you know, man.
Do the math for that, D-dubs.
You came from Shaggy. All right. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. And Shaggy, thanks, man. By the way, guys, subscribe to my channel, and I will subscribe back, just to let you know. Hold up, guys, just a moment. Be right back.
But yeah, that's his channel. He dope. So that's all you gotta look out for is don't watch, continue. Oh my gosh. I'm really trying to be lively here. But sometimes it's difficult. Let's see who else is on here. He's kind of funny. Oh, here's one of the like actual famous channels that I like.
Full Sail University is a place
Man.
where creative dreamers
Ads.
learn their craft.
Normally, I don't even like skipping through ads so that way people can get their money out of it.
Full Sail
Yeah.
University. The year 1989. Tiananmen Square is abuzz with hopeful optimism. The Cold War comes to an end as Nathan's Famous opens a shop in Moscow. The 90s are on the horizon, and a cinematic tour de force opens our minds
There's
to
a
new
parody of
worlds.
like
One of
educational
play
channels, and I
models
love it.
spread across a canvas of British wit and cheddar dreams. A short film clocking in at a humble length of 23 minutes, but considering it took 7 years to make, you can be assured that each frame of this artistic triumph is nothing short of transcendent. Wallace and Gromit in A Grand Day Out. Keep in mind, during this time, computer-generated graphics were still in their infancy, with few passing as more than tech demos, and only one or two that are more than simple morbid curiosities. But that is neither here or there.
Man, let me find something from Against the World. Oh wow. I don't think I should even show it. Here's Against the World. He just dropped this. Please stop, because he keeps showing me holding a fake gun. And yes, it's a fake gun. It's a BB gun. I ain't about to be out here doing all that craziness. Go ahead, dang. Go ahead, Chris the Fresh. Oh, actually, let me. Yeah, I really just needed that break. Oh boy, I'm just gonna comment on this real quick, and then I promise I will be back to reading Dickens. Oh, vey, I don't even know if I should read another chapter of Dickens. Let me know real quick. Shall I read another chapter of Dickens, or should I just go about the rest of my day? Looking at you, Fishy. Anyone else who wants to show up as well? Oh boy. We have to be the first to make 520, I think, at this rate. Oh boy. Wow, I'm getting all kinds of comments. This is so dope. Thank you, Fishy. You were really cool as hell for a kid. Pause. Well, that's right, D-Dubs. I am watching you while I am making my own stream.
Enough is enough. There we go.
I'm telling him out here I'm about to do one more chapter, and
Can I make it? Yes, I can.
then dissipate. Oh boy. Oh.
So, Fish, where are you from? You are from Ohio, if I'm correct? Just like Shaggy.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Let me try. Try not to lose my mind reading this depressing, ridiculous book. Because Dickensian literally comes from this author. And that is like anytime that something is just like over the top depressing while still being feasible. So chapter 6. Oliver being goaded by the taunts of Noah rouses into action and rather astonishes him. The month's trial over, Oliver was formally apprentice. It was a nice sickly season just at this time. In commercial phrase, coffins were looking up, and in the course of a few weeks, Oliver had acquired a great deal of experience. The success of Mr. Sourberry's ingenious speculation exceeded even his most sanguine hopes. The oldest inhabitants recollected no period at which measles had been so prevalent or so fatal to infant existence. Ooh, and many were the mournful processions which little Oliver headed in a hat band reaching down to his knees, to the indescribable admiration and emotion of all of the mothers in town. As Oliver accompanied his master in most of his adult expeditions too, in order he might acquire that equanimity of demeanor and full command of nerve which are so essential to a furnished undertaker. He had many opportunities of observing the beautiful resignation and fortitude on which some strong minded people bear their trials and losses. Uh, yeah, this is gonna be the last chapter I'm doing, Fishy, but you didn't have to leave the stream. Y'all can always come back. Um, it's let's see. uh, for instance, when Sourberry had an order for the burial of some rich old lady or gentleman, he was surrounded by a great number of nephews and nieces who had been perfectly inconsolable during the previous illness, and whose grief had been wholly irrepressible even on the most public occasions. They would be as happy among themselves as need be, quite cheerful and contented, conversing together with as much freedom and gaiety as if nothing whatever had happened to disturb them. Husbands, too, bore the loss of their wives with the most heroic calmness. Wives, again, put on weeds for their husbands as if so far from grieving in the garb of sorrow, they had made up their minds to render it as becoming and attractive as possible. It was observable, too, that ladies and gentlemen who were in the passions of anguish during the ceremony of interment recovered almost as soon as they reached home, and became quite composed before the tea drinking was over. Ooh, I could go for a good tea right about now. Let's see. Uh,
I wonder how long will this coronavirus shit will take, you know?
as I was asking, what's going on in the USA with the coronavirus? It's terrible. It is terrible, D Dubs. We are. We just hate being bored. I don't even think that we're really doing that badly. But there wasn't a lot of preparation, and then there wasn't a lot of positivity that's come out of it. Let's see. Oh boy. That Oliver Twist was moved to resignation by the example of these good people, I cannot, although I am his biographer, undertake to affirm with any degree of confidence, but I can most distinctly say that for many months he continued meekly to submit to the dominance and ill treatment of Noah Claypole, who used him far worse than before. Now that his jealousy was roused by seeing the new boy promoted to the black stick, Charlotte treated him badly because Noah did. Mrs. Sowerberry was his decided enemy because Mr. Sowerberry was disposed to be his friend. So between these three on one side and a glut of funerals on the other, Oliver was not altogether as comfortable as the hungry pig was when he was shut up by mistake in the grain department of a brewery. Yeesh. That's very descriptive.
And don't watch continue. Can you please have a moderator? Oh, you want to be a moderator? Yes, you can, but why do you want that? It's okay, man.
Oh no, don't give it to him. He's a kid. Sorry, Fishy.
There you go. You're a moderator now. Just like Dog Rose. You also live stream?
Oh my god.
Hey, fish.
I don't know how to forgive you. I think I just made Fishy really mad. And that's we'll work on that after. Oh boy. Oh boy.
Fishy,
Oy vey. Fishy, you are just going to annoy everybody that I like on here, and that's okay because we need the views. Got love for you, buddy. Just immediately jumps on his stream. Oh boy. That Oliver Twist was moved to resignation by the example of these good people, I cannot, although I am his biographer, undertake to affirm with any degree of confidence. But I can most distinctly say that for many months he continued meekly to submit to the domination and ill treatment of Noah Claypole, who used him far worse than before, now that his jealousy was roused by seeing the new boy promoted to the black stick and headband, while he, the old one, remained stationary in the muffin cap and leathers. Charlotte treated him badly because Noah did. Mrs. Sowerberry was his decided enemy because Mr. Sowerberry was supposed to be his friend. So between these three on one side and the glut of funerals on the other, Oliver was not altogether as comfortable as the hungry pig was when he was shut up by mistake in the grain department of the brewery. And now I come to a very important passage of Oliver's history, for I have to record an act, slight and unimportant, perhaps in appearance, but which indirectly produced a most material change in all his future prospects and proceedings. One day Oliver and Noah had descended into the kitchen at the usual dinner hour to banquet upon a small joint of mutton and a pound and a half of the worst end of the neck, when, Charlotte being called out of the way, there ensued a brief interval of time, which Noah Claypole, being hungry and vicious, could not possibly devote worthier purpose than the aggravation and tantalizing of young Oliver Twist. He's still doing his thing. This is so dope. So yeah, if y'all are into games, man, DWC is doing the lost levels of Donkey Kong on his channel right now. So I'm just trying to do my best to not get too distracted because he keeps coming back like, "Hey Shaggy, what do you think about this? Hey Shaggy, what do you think about that?" And I'm like, man, people are probably already going to be too bored to watch a full 2 hours of someone reading Oliver Twist anyway. And I love this. I love this foreigner. So you better watch this foreigner, you Americans. Oh God, I'm gonna have to delete this stream. Oy vey.
Oh, Shaggy, are you live streaming now?
Yes, D-Dubs, I am live streaming now. Yes.
Yeah, you were live streaming, right?
Oh boy, I even just admitted I am not doing a good job at
I
this.
am joining your live stream now. Let me like your video. There we go.
Oh boy, you are the shiznit, D-Dubs.
So funny, you look like Scooby-Doo, Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, man, like I mentioned before.
Oh boy.
I can hear myself in your live stream.
Oh, that's live. Yes, you can hear yourself.
So you are live and you watch on your phone?
I am watching you on my phone while I am attempting to read just one more chapter of Oliver Twist because this is like the most ridiculous, complicated. Well, no, it's not really that ridiculous or that complicated. It was just written in 1837. So I'm trying to wrap my mind around everything this guy's trying to say in his book.
If you want, join my Discord. So maybe we can live stream sometimes together, you know?
That sounds really dope, but I really don't know how to do that. So let's see. I know that's crap. Intent upon this innocent amusement. Yeah, I got to continue as well. Continue. So, intent upon this innocent amusement, Noah put his feet on the tablecloth and pulled Oliver's hair and twitched his ears in an expression of his opinion that he was a sneak, and furthermore announced his intention of coming to see him hung whenever the desirable event should take place, and entered upon various others, produced the desired effect of making Oliver cry. Noah attempted to be more facetious still, and in this attempt, thank you, D-Dubs. Oh boy, I wish I had a sticker of the guy from Rick and Morty talking about my man. But let me get back in this, and I gotta continue, just like you gotta continue. Oh boy. Noah attempted to be more facetious still, and in this attempt did what many small wits with far greater reputations than Noah sometimes do to this day when they want to be funny. He got rather personal. Workers.
You are writing your own books, right? That's nice, man.
I did, yeah. I wrote a book. I'm waiting for like a couple reviews, and then I'm gonna get it published. So, but yeah. Yeah. Right now, I'm just reading Oliver Twist. Oh, he's singing. It's hot. Ooh, that's hot.
Okay, jump.
That's hot.
What? What the hell was that?
Something just happened. I don't know. Yo, no way you actually commented. Yes, he did. D-Dubs is the shiznit. Let me do the thing all these Euro people be doing.
You both deserve a lot more subscribers, man.
I mean, I do, but let me stop. Oh my God. Thank you, though. Here, I will write thank you real quick.
Oh, come on.
Oh, Dog Rose, yes, I'm absolutely a fan of you too, man. You're awesome. I think I already subbed to you, though. So, what's up, Dog Rose? And, let's see.
She's dead,
Replied Oliver.
don't you say anything about her to me.
Oliver's color rose as he said this. He breathed quickly, and there was a curious working of the mouth and nostrils, which Mr. Claypole thought might be the immediate precursor of a violent fit of crying. Oh boy. Under this impression, he returned to the charge.
What did she die of, Workers?
Said Noah.
Of a broken heart, some of our own nurses told me,
Replied Oliver, more as if he were talking to himself than answering Noah.
I think I know what it must be to die of that.
Told you all right for Larry, Workers,
said Noah as a tear rolled down Oliver's cheek.
What's that you sniveling now?
Not you,
Oliver replied, hastily brushing his tear away.
don't think it.
Oh, not me, eh?
Sneered Noah.
No, not you,
replied Oliver sharply.
There, that's enough. Don't say anything more to me about her, you'd better not. Better not, exclaimed Noah. Well, better not, workers. Don't be impudent. Your mother, too. She was a nice one, she was, oh law.
And here Noah nodded his head expressively and curled up as much of his small red nose as muscular action could collect together for the occasion.
You know, workers,
Continued Noah, emboldened by Oliver's silence, and speaking in a jeering tone that affected pity of all tones and the most annoying.
you know, workers, it can't be helped now. And of course, you can't help it then. You're so very sorry for it. And I'm sure we all are. And pity you very much. But you must know, workers, your mother was a regular right down bad 'un.
This is how this kid actually talks. I just want to put this up here if y'all can see. This is how this kid actually talks. He talks like a friggin' like 80-year-old man that's been drinking his whole life. And it's great.
What did you say?
Inquired Oliver, looking up very quickly. Stop laughing, D-Dubs. You're making it hard. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh my goodness. Let me find my place again. It's hard enough. I am reading 19th century literature here. Come on. You keep making me laugh. Oh boy.
What did you say?
Inquired Oliver, looking up very quickly.
A regular right down bad 'un, workers,
Replied Noah coolly.
and it's a great deal better, workers, that she died when she did, or else she'd have been hard labouring in Bridewell.
He's still live, right? He's live streaming.
Yes, I'm still live streaming.
When I refresh his live stream, there's no comments.
There's definitely comments. I don't know what's going on. I don't know. My laptop's funky anyway. It cut me off last night out of nowhere before I could even do like an outro or anything. So we just gotta live with it. This is dope though. I got 3 viewers. You got 4 viewers. You deserve it, fam. Let me just show some love.
Oh, in the chat, you mean? Oh, hold up.
Oh boy. Yeah. So, crimson with fury, Oliver started up, overthrew the chair and table, and seized Noah by the throat and shook him in the violence of his rage till his teeth clattered in his head, and collecting his whole force into one heavy blow, felled him to the ground. A moment ago, the boy had looked quite mild, dejected creature that harsh treatment had made him, but his spirit was roused at last. The cruel insult to his dead mother had set his blood on fire.
Say what you said in the chat. I'm reading your chat, but I don't know what comment you mean.
Wait. Now Fishy's pulling some crap over here. I
you
gotta
mean
see.
like that?
See the comment I put on Shaggy's
One
live.
love. Yeah, man. Of course. One love, guys.
I mean, comment.
It's all about
Oh,
love.
babe. Sorry. In the chat. Oh no.
Oh, so Shaggy is your teacher, Fishy.
No, I am not. I just know him from yesterday showing up and cursing on my live yesterday. That is the only he started dropping bad words. My teacher, 10 plus
Nice.
16,950. Me loading sign. Hilarious. I love it. I saw that before too, and I was just trying to keep my place. And it's hard enough reading these type of books by myself, but to read them out loud with distractions around me. And I keep going back to these stupid accents.
Oh, yeah. I remember. Let's go.
But A minute ago, the boy had looked quiet, mild, dejected. His breast heaved. His attitude was erect. His bright eyes and vivid. His whole person changed as he stood glaring over the cowardly tormentor who now lay crouching at his feet and defied him with an energy he had never known before.
He'll murder me,
Blubbered Noah.
Charlotte, Mrs. There's a new boy murdering of me. Help! Help! Oliver's gone mad. Charlotte!
Noah's shouts were responded to by a loud scream from Charlotte, and a louder from Mrs. Sowerberry, the former of whom had rushed into the kitchen by the side door, while the latter paused on the staircase till she was quite certain that it was consistent with the preservation of human life to come further down.
Oh, you little wretch!
Screamed Charlotte with her utmost force, which was about equal to that of a moderately strong man in particularly good training. Dang, Charlotte. This isn't, I don't feel like this is the best illustration of that scene, but it's still really dope that this has like original illustrations in it. Because Noah's supposed to be like fat and basically look like he's already been drunk for a minute. And Oliver, when he looks, Oliver actually really.
Is that your book
No,
that you wrote?
no, it's Charles Dickens. Thank you for asking. Oh, I wish I had this kind of skill. I do not have nearly the linguistics Mr. Dickens did.
Donkey Kong on your cell phone? I mean, on your phone?
Yes, while I'm reading this, I'm putting Donkey Kong up here just so people can see you. Just because they know I'm not completely insane. I am crazy, but not that crazy.
Oh, you little ungrateful, murderous, horrid villain!
In between every syllable, Charlotte gave Oliver a blow with all her might, accompanying it with a scream for the benefit of society. Charlotte's fist was by no means a light one, but at least it should not be effectual in calming Oliver's wrath. Mrs. Sowerberry plunged into the kitchen and assisted to hold him with one hand while she scratched his face with the other. Me reading this book. Oh, by the way, the answer to that 10 plus 16,950 is like 16,960. Really easy. No.
All right, right back.
Who? How dare? That's terrible, though. Like, seriously, though, anyone who's unsubscribing to him, I don't know how I feel about that. That's kind of messed up. But I am literally one page away from finishing this last chapter. Then we are done with chapter 6, and I can pick this up in chapter 7 another day. So
Shaggy,
yeah.
you write a book about this live stream. That will be funny.
I could do a short story about it. I feel like that's very easy. Well, not very easy. There is no such thing as easy in writing, but it's very doable. I would definitely write you a short story about this live stream if you want. Just let me know. You want me to do it like really weird and classic like this, or do you want me to actually just keep it regular English? Because the fact that we can even understand something that was written almost 200 years ago is really dope. But I typically like doing it like at least mid-century. You know what I'm saying? Because I mean, man, even getting into like early 20th century stuff really starts getting complicated. But yeah, I can totally do it in like all classic dialect and just really confuse the hell out of you if you want to.
Okay, let's finish this.
Just let me know.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not writing a whole book.
John, nah. here we go again. Here we go again. Hey.
Okay. Noah rose from the ground and pummeled him from behind. This was rather too violent exercise to last too long. While they were all three wearied out and could tear and beat no longer, they dragged Oliver, struggling and shouting, but nothing daunted, into the dust cellar, and locked him up. This being done, Mrs. Sowerberry snuck into a chair and burst into tears.
Bless her, she's going off,
Said Charlotte.
a glass of water, Noah dear, make haste.
Oh, Charlotte, said Mrs. Sowerberry, speaking as well as she could through a deficiency of breath and a sufficiency of cold water, which Noah had poured over her head and shoulder. Wow, Noah is a turd. 3 likes, 3 views right now. This is dope. Oh, Charlotte, said Mrs. Sowerberry, speaking as well as she could through a deficiency of breath and a sufficiency of cold water, which Noah had poured over her head and shoulders. Oh, Charlotte, what a mercy we have not been murdered in our beds. A mercy. Oh,
A mercy indeed, ma'am,
was the reply. Yes, I'm annoying. No, the stage is killing them though, and I love trying to learn back and forth over here. It's great. Sorry, I'm laughing at your pain, D-dubs. But let me just get back into this.
Shaggy, it's very doable. What if he actually writes a book about this live stream? You would actually pee your pants because of laughing. Yeah. It's funny. Huh? But hey, guys,
I don't think it's that funny, but
damn difficult. Believe me. If you don't believe me, alright.
you're having your difficulties. I'm having mine too.
Then
Oh
just
boy.
try to finish this video. Then you know what I mean.
a mercy indeed, ma'am.
Was the reply.
I only hope this will teach master not to have any more of these dreadful creatures that are born to be murderers and robbers from their very cradle.
What I don't understand is
Poor Noah, he was all but killed, ma'am, when I called him.
will appear in my life.
Oh, poor fellow.
Said Mrs. Sowerberry, looking piteously at the charity
Or
boy.
did appear. I don't
Noah, whose top waistcoat button might have been somewhere on a level with the crown of Oliver's head. Yeah,
What's to be done?
exclaimed Mrs. Sowerberry.
Your master's not home. There's not a man in the house, and he'll kick that door down in 10 minutes.
Oliver's vigorous plunges against the bit of timber in question
What the hell?
rendered this occurrence highly probable. This kid's so pissed that he's about to break down a door just to hit these other 2 kids, and all they're talking about is how terrible he is.
Dear, I know, ma'am.
Said Charlotte.
Unless we send for the police officers.
What a military. And he said military. Oh my god. Suggested Mr. Claypool. No, said Mrs. Sowerberry, bethinking herself of Oliver's old friend.
Run to Mr. Bumble, Noah, and tell him to come here directly, and not to lose another minute. Never mind your cap. Make haste. You can hold down a knife to that black eye. As long as you run along, it'll keep the swelling down.
Noah stopped to make no reply, but started off at his fullest speed, and very much astonished by the people who were out walking to see a charity boy tearing through the streets pell-mell with no cap on his head and a clasp knife in his eye. Oh boy, that's it.
The next boss.
I don't know. You guys tell me, should I do chapter 7? I will give you 30 seconds to tell me. I'm really not feeling it, but I will. Boy, let me type it in here. Should I do chapter 7? Or just stop torturing myself and send?
Guys, this game is something else. I mean, today.
Because he's torturing himself. And that makes it very difficult for me to justify that.
But also, Shaggy from Scooby-Doo joined the live stream. Damn, Shaggy, you look so much like Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, man. It's unbelievable. But that is so funny.
I've had this nickname for years. Every time I grow my hair out.
How you like this? TNT on your ass. Huh? Huh?
Oh boy, I'm so glad I shaved the little chin hair that I had when I was doing the Catch-22 review. Oh yeah. I'm just gonna put a pin in that. This from my video the other day. I did a
Shaggy, what do you mean, man?
bro, this is difficult.
Telling a story in your live stream. Is that what you are doing? Wait, hold up. What are you saying? Because I cannot hear your live stream, so...
You can't hear me? Oh boy, I wasn't saying anything for just a minute in there, but
I hear myself now in your live stream.
So you hear yourself better than you hear me. I don't get it.
Yeah, I can hear you if I turn on my sound. But when I'm live streaming, your sound will be in my live stream, you know what I mean?
Right, and I'm not trying to force you to do that just because I'm silly enough to do that. But it is what it is. Oh boy. I'm just trying to figure out. I'm reading Charles Dickens, Oliver Twist. This book came out in 1837. It is extremely difficult for me because I'm a schmuck.
Well, it's fine that your voice is in my live stream. What I mean is, when I turn on your live stream at the same time with you, then maybe you cannot hear me because both voices going through each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get that. You're definitely right about that. Oh. Oh boy. My book is not nearly this long or complicated. You can read it. I can't. Here, I'm just going to show this because this was in my video the other day and I really enjoyed doing it. This was really enjoyable when I did that the other day. I recently read Catch-22. I tried to break it down in 6 minutes with one take. And while that didn't work out super well, this chart came out amazingly. And the subtitles that I added after the fact actually were pretty dope. So that's some... Oh, that's what's up. Do you want me to do chapter 7? Because this is getting to be pretty long and complicated.
Okay. Let's finish this, boss. Come on.
Okay, I'm about to... I'm still debating.
After this, boss, I will go to my own YouTube channel. If you want, can you listen to some songs I will play in a few moments? And please let me know what you think about that.
Okay, I'm probably just gonna go see that.
I don't understand the language.
Chapter 7 next time. Oh boy. Cause bro be rapping in Dutch and that's unique. All kinds of really awesome videos in the very near future. I really don't have anything else to add at this point. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be on the lookout for like actual content, not just silly live streams. I guess if I get it requested, I will do the rest of this book on here. But at this point, I'm really just kind of wanting to read it on my own and give y'all a review like I normally would. So Thank you so much for DWC. Dog Rose, you were the shiznit for showing up to this too. And Fishy, I don't care if you're a youngster, you've been a lot of fun. So thank you. So again, everybody, subscribe to those folks. Subscribe to Against the World G with
Hey, thank you for the subscribe.
one T in there.
Appreciate that.
I think it's only got one T instead of two because it should be Against the World.
Hey,
It's just Against the World. So that's really dope. Anyway, thank you so much. Everyone has been awesome. This is a lot of fun. I will definitely be back to live stream some better stuff in the very near future. So hit that notification button for updates.
making my
Like, share, subscribe.
track,
A lot of fun, everybody.
and I also made the beat.
One love, peace to the God.
So please let me know what you think about this.
I wanna thank you for letting me be myself again.
Did that?
Yo, okay.
Are you sure you want? Yeah. Oh my gosh! I was trying to go out on a funny note. Why aren't you letting? Oh, never mind. Listen to this guy rapping Dutch.
Dagen, maanden, jaren gaan voorbij. Nog steeds geen antwoord voor mij. Want ik heb te veel vragen, maar dat is cool. Want ik ben blij met wat ik doe. Ik heb zoveel beats. Vraag me niet hoe ik ze maak. Check mijn YouTube en daar is je clue klaar. Tot diep in de nacht zwaar moe. Maar dan heb ik resultaten.
Bro is a
Dat
Dutch
waarom ik
rapper.
dit doe. Het gaat alleen om de
And this
centen.
shit
Te
go
weinig
hard.
docenten. Wij zijn de talenten, studenten. Altijd
purse.
draait het om de procenten. Hackers hebben controle over elke zender. Online netwerken gaan elke dag verder. En waarom is de wereld niet menselijk? Dit is niet normaal. Dit is mijn lied, mijn verhaal. Mijn pad, mijn liefde voor de beat.
He makes his own
Liefde is
beats.
iets waar ik niet van hou. Net als regen en de kou. Het begon allemaal bij self-made. Dit is de tijd deel 2. Dromen, de ruimte nog steeds. Life is strange. Life is strange.
Well, way to go, Fishy.
All day. Nachtenlang www, DWC, Easy, ABC, JCVD. De tijd is mijn CD. Zoveel nummers gemaakt op de PC. Album af, maar nog lang niet klaar. Ik mis de tijden van vroeger. Rijdend op een Vespa, nu hebben ze Tesla's. Waarom ik het doe, wat denk je zelf? Love naar mijn fam, love naar mijn fanbase. Love naar mezelf, omdat ik elke track zelf eet. Love naar Dog Roze, love naar Zero Guy. Ik doe dit niet zomaar. Vroeger lag ik in coma. Het gaat om love, je weet ik heb gelijk.
All right, I'm just gonna go watch that for now. But hey, thanks again, everybody. I'm signing off for real this time. No more fake outs. Like, share, hit that like button. Subscribe for more literature and analysis and comedy and whatever else I feel like doing that day. Thank everybody so much. Huge fan of this. Ooh, it sounds so cold. I don't even know what he's saying. I love it. Thank you so much, everybody. Be safe out here. One love.